The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
Put the power back in your hands. This is Behind the Law with attorney Justin Clark.
Welcome to Behind the Law. Happy weekend to you. We have an amazing, very important show lined up for you today, but allow me, as always, to introduce you to my beautiful co-host, Makaila Nichols. Makaila, how are you?
Great.
You are not a lawyer. I am a lawyer. You are the voice of the people at home. You ask the questions that maybe I don't think about.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I'm here for.
And keep in mind, we are here for you live. We will answer your questions. 321-282-1055. Here's what's coming up. You have some wealth, you have some money in the bank, and you're worried about what happens. Is your family going to fight over that wealth if, heaven forbid, something happens to us? We're going to answer that question with John Ledford. Also, Brandon Stewart will join us to talk about family law issues, divorce, child custody, things that we really don't like to talk about, but unfortunately happen in a lot of relationships. It's really an important show today. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Here's what we're going to do. A very quick break. When we return, Behind the Law continues. When it comes to your investment strategy, there's only one place that we turn. It is Fortress Wealth Group. The QR code for Fortress is right here on the screen, but even better yet, joined by its leader, John Ledford. John, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today.
They kept tech is dead. Tech is dead. Is tech dead?
Tech is definitely not dead. Absolutely not. Tech is thriving and well.
It's the AI thing has just come out of nowhere, huh? What's going on?
You know, crazy. The last 6 months, the creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI, they're now the fastest growing company in the world. More subscribers than anyone before them, and launched from zero to hundreds of millions of users almost overnight. And really, when you think about what goes into AI, and AI being commonplace, not just something we talk about, but something we use, the one thing AI thrives on are computer chips. And so you've got all these tech companies that are in the chip business that are now being propelled by this totally new type of industry and business out there.
And when you are strategizing about investment, having someone like you is so important to have the foresight as to what is going on in this world.
Well, you know, there are a lot of different ways to invest. And I have this conversation with clients and comrades, you know, quite often about what's the right way to invest. And the answer is there is no one right way to invest. And so we like to be a little bit agnostic in our strategy. So some passive, some active, some opportunistic. We think that's the best approach for most investors. And this would definitely fall into that opportunistic bucket. If you've got assets that are coming in, you have an asset sale, or you have money that's sitting on the sideline, what do you do with it? Well, you want to fill up your normal buckets first, but on the opportunistic side, I don't think there's any better place, you know, to be investing for someone who has long time frame, a lot of risk tolerance than potentially in artificial intelligence.
Great job, John. Keep up the good work. The best strategy that you can have right now is to call Fortress Wealth Group, hit the QR code on the screen. You will not be disappointed. That's what we did. Welcome back to the show. And look, I know none of us want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about death, but it is a fact of life. Is at some point, I'm not trying to get dark here, but it's a fact
it
of
sounds
life.
a little morbid.
Death and taxes, that's what they say. The problem is I, at the firm, see the backside of this, where people come in, their mom or dad or both have passed away. And now all of a sudden the brother that you were so close to, or your sister that you love so much, now you guys are fighting. We're fighting about their money. And let me tell you something, if you have some assets, and I'm not even talking about a ton of assets, you really need to consider how your family is going to handle those assets after you pass on. I'd like to invite in John Ledford, of course, Fortress Wealth Group. John, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Having a wonderful day. Thank you.
We see different sides of this, although we probably see the same side of it as well. Normally, I'm dealing with it when a brother or sister's in and they're mad at their brother or sister because mom or dad passed away and left these assets, and now we want to fight over it.
Right.
You see it, hopefully, if we do the right thing, you see it earlier on, during mom and dad's lifetime. They come in and they say, look, I have these assets. I don't really know what to do to protect the assets and to prevent our family from fighting over them. when I'm gone. How does that conversation normally go early on?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Everyone has a different orientation to how they want to deal with things like this, and I kind of see it in two camps. I see it in the more professional camp, and I see it in what I'd maybe call the do-it-yourselfer camp. And I grew up in a do-it-yourselfer household. My dad was like, "You need a car, let's go build one." So that's the world I grew up in. The world I live in now, I don't pay for anything. Like I don't do anything. I pay someone to do absolutely everything, and a little bit different style, that I'm growing up in now. But oftentimes, I might meet with a family, and they might have assets, and most people have some assets. They're not all in a neat bundle. Oftentimes, they're in a lot of different places, and they might say something like, "Well, that asset has a beneficiary on it, and that asset has a joint tenant, and that asset has another joint tenant." And oftentimes, if someone is more of the do-it-yourselfer mentality, they maybe don't want to go see a lawyer. They maybe don't want to pay for a will, trust, and estate plan. They want to kind of piece it together themselves. That's where we tend to see the most horror stories, and that's what we counsel people away from. A great financial plan always ends with a great estate plan. Because what's the sense of doing all these amazing things during your lifetime, investing well, saving on taxes, all this stuff we talk about, and then ultimately have chaos upon your death, And so most people who are good financial stewards, they want that to extend beyond their lifetime. And so we get involved as early as possible. How do we make things simple? How do we coordinate it? What are the right strategies to put in place? Sometimes I get in the same position, though, that you mentioned. Right. It's not an uncommon that maybe someone has referred to me and we sit down and they say, my mom or dad just passed away. I have 1 or 9 siblings. It doesn't really matter. I was closest. And so my mom named me as the joint tenant on the assets. What am I supposed to do? My brothers and sisters want their 1/9 share, but mom named me and gave it all to me. And so what do I do?
Right.
And I say call Justin because that's a legal issue. I'm going to stay out of it. But it's super complicated. It's super complicated, especially if there's a lot of assets. You can't just go giving away, hundreds of thousands of dollars without there being other estate and tax complications as a result.
Yeah, and it really is disheartening. You spend your entire lifetime working so hard to develop these assets, and then the very thing that you've worked so hard for is going to tear your family apart. When you pass away. Don't let that happen to you. I have a QR code on the screen right now, and we'll connect you with John immediately. He has this estate planning checklist. It's super easy. I've seen it. It's not complicated, but it's a very good way for you to assess what's going on in your financial world and make sure you are prepared for that next part of life, and the next part of life for your children as well. You can hit the QR code or call 321-282-1055. Now, John, I hear about, should I get a trust, not get a trust? It's a big debate, it seems like, for people. What do you tell people when they ask about a trust?
So I and most financial advisors are big fans of living trusts. And the reason we are is that it creates a very singular lens to address how someone wants to deal with all of their assets. So rather than there being this piecemeal approach, right? Everything basically says we want the trust to own everything. In most cases, we want the trust to be the beneficiary of everything. And then the follow-up conversation is how do we want these assets distributed? And the trust would address all of those things as well. So the first thing a trust does, it creates coordinated planning, which is something that we really, really love. Yeah. It also creates, as we know, a probate avoidance, which is typically 3 to 6% in the state of Florida, and that's on the gross size of the estate. So it could be an extremely large amount of money. And then a trust also creates privacy. So if I have a living trust and you're my trustee and Makaila's a beneficiary, the only people involved in that transaction are the 3 of us. And so long as it's set up properly and it's funded properly and administered properly, it's completely private. And so when I pass away, no one can go down to the courthouse and look at my probate file and see what was John really worth. I think it was X, it's really Y, and I think I'll call all of his beneficiaries and see how they're doing. No one gets to do that with a trust. It's all a private mechanism, which is not only just an asset transfer issue, but also during your lifetime, can avoid guardianship and all kinds of other issues. And so if someone has an estate, in most cases, if they have assets other than just a home and a retirement plan, they have other investment assets that are in excess of, say, $100,000. In most cases, most estate planning attorneys are going to say, you'd be better served by having a living trust than by having just a traditional will.
Got it. What all types of assets can I put into a trust?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's funny because when I first got in this business years ago, we built our business by doing estate planning seminars. And in those days, it was not in vogue, if you will, to put homestead real estate inside of a trust.
Right.
There was a question that a lot of attorneys pose that obscures the homestead protection, all that other kind of stuff. I think that's pretty well settled business at this stage of the game. And so most people put their trust, their home in the trust. Most people put their investment assets in the trust. A lot of people put life insurance in the trust. They usually do not put retirement assets, and we usually advise against putting liabilities in the trust, things like automobiles and things that are going to potentially generate liabilities for us. We usually advise not to put those in the trust as well.
Got it. How do you think a trust really helps someone? So when a client comes in, they have $300,000 to protect. How does a trust really protect them?
Well, let's start with the psychological side.
Yeah.
Because really in everything that we do, there's a financial component and there's a psychological component. And the older I get, the more time I spend on the psychological side. I've realized that's way more important. And so one of the first things a trust does is it creates clarity and peace of mind. And so rather than people wondering, I was in a meeting this morning, and the gentleman was saying, I've got to get these things clarified and accomplished because they're kind of driving me crazy.
Right.
And oftentimes our brains kind of swirl on things that bother us. So the trust creates a sense of peace, if you will, which is really the first thing I'm after anyway in counseling a client. The second thing it does is it creates certainty. Certainty as to what's going to happen to these assets. How are they going to pass from me to my wife and I down to our children? How are they going to do that? And I know how they're going to do it, and I know in most cases, if it's designed properly, that they're going to do that as efficiently as possible. One of the things that comes up in these conversations and that's on our checklist is, how do you want your beneficiaries to receive assets? It's a pretty big question. If you pass away, do you want them to get a big check? I was 19 once, and I didn't need millions of dollars then, and if I had them, I probably wouldn't be here today. Right? And so one of the things we talk about is if you have children, minor or otherwise, how and when do they get it? I'm a big fan of what's called incentive trusts. That's what my kids have. So
go on.
Scary,
so essentially, the more productive they are, the more money they get.
Oh.
And so if child A walks in with a tax return that has a number on it, he gives it to the trustee writes him a check to match that number.
Wow.
And so all kids ultimately, and we have 4 children, so ultimately the 4 children are treated equally, but they're treated equally based upon their perception, their attitude, their ability to generate income.
I love it. I love it. But
Scary.
that is the control that you can have when you start planning ahead, when you start protecting those assets. You're really protecting your future family as well. John Ledford, excellent job as always.
Thank you.
And thank you for this checklist. And by the way, this checklist is fantastic. It is going to give you an opportunity to see what you have, where it's all spread out, and how in the world, if something happens to you, you're going to be able to pass it down to the people you love the most, your children, your grandchildren. This dictates everything, and it does it privately, where no one's going to get involved in your business. QR code on the screen right now. It's totally free, by the way. Completely free. John's going to put this together for you for free. QR code on the screen, or 321-282-1055. A very quick break. You know, sometimes families don't work out. You're going through a divorce, custody issues. What are you to do as Behind the Law continues? As we enter hurricane season, is your house protected? Is your family protected? Those windows on your home are so important. Renewal by Andersen is here. Dan Brigman, how are you, Dan? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, Justin. Thanks for asking.
A lot of people have memories of hurricanes, and do they just hear the windows going like this and this? I mean, a lot of windows out there are not safe right now. What should we do?
First thing you got to do is you got to have somebody out and have those windows inspected. Like if you've had even just a windstorm come through and you've heard the vibration or even the whistle of the wind, you need to have us out. We need to look at it.
The QR code is on the screen right now. Dan brought a special gift for only you. Dan, if they hit the QR code, what are you going to offer?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that, but we've got the brand new Coastal product out, and we are doing something that will happen again, and it's buy one and get 40% off the next. And that's a Coastal product. And as you know, Coastal can be a security window also, not just a storm protection window. So it's an incredible deal. I'm excited about it. I'm kind of worried how we're going to see everybody, but we'll make it happen.
I love it. So a lot of times, though, your windows do need work. But here's what's going on. What we've noticed about people we've sent to renewal is the electricity bills have come down so much once they put the new windows that they pay for themselves.
Oh yeah, yes, they do. You take your house; it's roughly about 28 to 30% glass. If you have sun hitting three sides of your house. If you don't stop that sun from coming in, your electric bill will never slow down. By putting a Renewal by Andersen window in there, you can save anywhere from 25 to 40% in your electric bill. You put that in with your payment. 10 years, your windows you're making more on your return with us than you are with investments.
Well, Dan, great job. Call Renewal by Andersen or hit the QR code on your screen now. Welcome back to the show. All right, we already covered death. Let's go with
casual topics.
Let's go with another D word that's not that fun. Divorce. All right. Look, I think
or
it's
breaking up.
breaking
right?
up. I
Yeah.
mean, consciously uncoupling.
Yes,
Is that what it
consciously
is?
uncoupling.
Well,
That's very much.
half of marriages, unfortunately, end in divorce. What do you do when you find yourself in that position? Maybe you have children. How do you determine who gets what kid when and for how long? Holidays, it's summer. Able to with your children. These are questions that everyone has when they go through these traumatic times of life and traumatic times of their relationship. Attorney Brandon Stewart has a lot of divorce cases, child custody disputes. Welcome to.
Thank you, sir.
All right. No, that again.
God, don't do that. Stroke is
Hi,
here.
Brandon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Can I leave?
Please. No. Stay.
Each other for a while.
Yeah,
Yes, we have.
it's cute.
Like a little brother to me. Okay, let's get to the divorce, okay? Because number one, I think a lot of people who have decided, look, I'm getting divorced, I'm done with this. How long is it going to take? I know that's a loaded question, but how long does a divorce really take?
That's like, I think every single family law client I've ever had, that's like the number one question.
How long?
Yeah, how long is this going to take? Well, it all depends. Are we fighting the divorce? Do we agree to the divorce? Can we get along? Those are the factors.
What if I don't want to get divorced? Someone's trying to divorce me. And I'm like, you know what? I just don't feel like it. I'm not going to get divorced. How possible is that?
It's still possible. And are you asking as if one person's not going to participate at all, or they just don't want to get divorced? I mean,
I just don't want to get divorced. I'm still in love.
Well, part of a divorce is you have to prove to the court that the marriage is irretrievably broken. One party's going to say it's irretrievably broken. One might say it's not irretrievably broken. They might try to motion the court for some type of counseling as a last-ditch effort to keep it together.
How often does that work?
It depends on which judge you go in front of. You know,
Really?
some judges have hearts. Others just want to get a case through. So
All right. So a divorce case where someone, they don't have a lot of assets. They're fighting over little things here and there. Was this 6 months? Is it a year, 2 years?
if they're fighting,
Fighting a little bit.
it could be anywhere from about 6 months to a year.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
How has the pandemic and its effect on the court system slowed down divorce cases?
Honestly, I think because of the pandemic, divorce cases have actually risen,
Yeah.
probably because much like the hurricane effect, when parties have to hunker down with their significant others for a period of time, they start to realize they don't like them as much as they thought they did, things of that nature. They don't go to work anymore.
Right.
I think at first, the way the courts handled it is they adapted. They essentially made hearings Zoom now, for the most part. So it's not as bad, but family law, depending on what county you're in, it could be a long time before you can get hearing time in front of a judge.
What about this? So husband and wife live in a house, they've got 2-3 kids, and I want to get divorced. I'm done. But there's going to obviously have to be a time of separation where you're not technically divorced. As you go through the divorce, who stays in the house? Who lives in the house?
That's the thing. You would try to amicably work that out with your spouse. One person, you can try to work it out with each other. If not, you have competing requests for exclusive use and possession of the property. You have to put it in the petition or a counter petition. Let the judge decide it.
Shouldn't it be who pays the bills?
Well,
Wouldn't that make the most sense?
you would think that, and I think there's a lot of husbands out there that probably agree with exactly what you're saying. However, a lot of the time, majority of the time, the wife, even if she's not paying majority of the bills, most likely will be granted exclusive use of the possession of the property because of the children, if there are children. If not, that's when it becomes more of a dogfight in court.
What if they're not married?
Well, then they wouldn't be getting divorced. But if they're not married, so what's the question now? If they're not married, who gets to keep the house? Whoever's titled to the house. If it's non-marriage, then yeah, it would be simply who's titled to the property. If you're not married, you're not entitled. The non-titled spouse wouldn't be entitled to that property or stay in the property.
There's a lot of questions I'm sure you might have, especially if you're going through this very, very, really tough situation in life. The phone number is right here, 321-282-1055. I will connect you with Brandon Stewart. Immediately, he will answer these questions. Again, it doesn't cost you anything to ask any questions about divorce or child custody, which, Brandon, I don't think we call it custody really in this state, do we?
They call it parent time sharing or parenting time.
Yeah,
one or the other.
So
It's like uncoupling.
Right. They don't want to say custody anymore.
Talk to me about time sharing. How does it work?
Obviously, well, not obviously, because people might not know, but attorneys, for it's obvious, because it's best interest of the child standard, which is like, how else would you look at it? There's Florida law and statutes that are solely dedicated to these best interests of the child standards. If someone's questioning, other than a common sense judgment of what best interest of the child is, there's actually factors laid out in the Florida statutes that anybody can go look at to figure out if what would be in the best interest in regards to where they want to live.
So both parents are squeaky clean. There's no issues whatsoever. What is a judge to do in that situation? Should it be 50-50?
So that's the thing. A lot of people assume there's a presumption to 50-50. The way the statutes lay it out, it doesn't exactly say that. It just says something along the lines of Florida has an interest in promoting, equal relationship between mother and father. So that's kind of Florida's way of saying, we kind of want 50-50, but you better show us something good as to why it's not 50-50, essentially. So in a sense, based on the hypothetical you just gave, most likely they're going to get a 50-50 split.
So I think that in hundreds of years of court systems, essentially at this point, there has been a sort of deferral over maybe to the mother more as the mother of the child, the more important parent. I think that's how we've looked at it for many years. Would you say that tide is turning somewhat?
Absolutely. I just had a trial the other day. It was a father. I was actually representing the mother, and it was the father who was trying to fight for the 50-50.
Yeah.
The judge absolutely felt for the father, and based on the fact that he wanted more time with his kids and other various reasons, and based on best interest standards, he did grant more time to the father. So there's definitely a change in the tide here. However, in the case of children that are maybe at a baby stage, infant stage, things like that, then at that point you're probably looking at more time with mother. But as they get older, then for sure the times have changed.
A lot of people planning their summer vacations right now, as you can imagine. How do we deal with child custody or visitation and vacation time?
It's simple. I mean, we always want parties to collaborate with each other. If they could just work it out amongst themselves, that would be great. But if not, everything goes into a parenting plan. Essentially, parties can't agree at all as to how they want their kids to be during the holidays. They can put it into a parenting plan and follow it that way, or they can be amicable, play it by ear.
How often do you see people in this situation amicable versus not? Seriously, because there's some issues in the relationship.
I want to say 50-50, but I would say more likely than not, it's not amicable,
Really?
Especially when it comes to children. It's just,
That's too bad.
It is too bad. It
Brandon
really
Stewart,
is.
Excellent work. Any questions about dealing with your children, dealing with divorce? He's really, really good at this sort of thing, and he's here to answer your calls right now, 321-282-1055. One last quick break. We will return, as always, with What Did We Learn? Do I ever have a very special gift for you today? Compliments our good friends over at Universal Roof and Contracting. 15% off your roofing job. The roof is the most important part of your house. No doubt about it. Welcome my good friends as always, Justin and Corey. Hi, how are you today?
Good, man, good. Thank you.
The roof is the most important part of the house, but sometimes deciding who your roofing company is going to be is the most important decision as well. Culture is everything.
Sure.
When determining who's going to do your roofing job, Universal, the culture over there blows me away. trustworthy. Tell me about the culture at Universal.
Yeah, I mean, 30 years in the making, right? Family-owned, veteran-owned, same name and ownership over the past 3 decades. We're so proud to be so rooted in Orlando, and we have offices in Jacksonville and Southwest Florida. But the honest approach, the integrity we carry, working transparently with insurance companies and homeowners alike. I mean, we approach roofing the way an honest company really should.
Trusted by some of the biggest sports teams in Florida as well.
That's right. That's right. We this past season we were the one of the partners with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was awesome. They had a great season this year too. And then just coming next month, the XFL, the Orlando Guardians. We are the official roofer for the Orlando Guardians, so we're excited to go out to those games and see everybody there. So it'll be great.
A roof can be expensive. You created great programs to make this roof not cost prohibitive for me.
Yeah, I mean, last thing we're going to do is take food off people's plates to afford a roof. So we have a ton of flexible financing plans that just keeps things very liquid for homeowners, even if they don't want to use their own money, even if they have it at the time, you know. So we offer that as well for every roof replacement.
I have this QR code on the screen right now. Get your phone out or go to their website, but the QR code will go directly to Justin and Corey, and literally you get 15% off. But guys, you're going to come to my house and tell me what I really need, honestly.
Absolutely, yeah. Free inspection, first of all. It does cost nothing for us to come out. We're going to sit down with you, hear what you like about your roof, what you don't like about your roof, what problems you've had, and come up with a custom scope of work that makes sense for you.
Always a pleasure to see you both. There's only one company we trust when it comes to roofing. That is Universal Roof and Contracting. And as always, today we wrap it up with what did we learn? Kaylin,
No pressure. This always stresses me out a little bit. That, you know, you can have different forms of trust, and I really like the one that John shared. I think that's kind of awesome. Like the kids have to, you know, really.
I love it.
It's cool.
And again, I see the backside of that where families are literally fighting over the wealth of their parents that their parents have worked so hard for. It's a horrible situation. It really ruins generations of families sometimes when it can really be easily fixed through that living trust. And by the way, the checklist that he has is so super easy. I highly recommend checking that out because it really gives you a chance to look at what you do have and what you're going to do with it. I also learned that it seems like during the pandemic we had more and more divorces. That's what Brandon said.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe?
I do. I mean, if you're in an unhappy relationship, get out of it, right?
Well, it brought us together, some of us, and pulled some of us apart. Great job, as always. Good to see you. Thank you, as always, for joining us this weekend. See you again next week for more Behind the Law.
It is hot here in Central Florida no matter what time of year it is, so you have to be prepared, and what a better way to be prepared. I'm joined by my friends at Old Ash Air Conditioning and Refrigeration. I have Moses Martinez and Carlos Valencia here with me. So tell me, you know, I'm in the market for a new AC thing to cool me down, keep me cool during whatever time of the year it is. What makes you guys different from your other competitors?
Well, Makaila, one of the things that makes us different compared to other distributors is the service. It is also like a one-stop shop. We have so much variety of different products for installation, different equipment, refrigeration equipment. We all packed, equipped with everything that all these contractors need. Also, our service level, the experience, getting the contractors in and out pretty quickly.
Very important, yeah. You don't want the contractors in your house too long. So, you know, keeping with obviously your service, you always strive to have the newest products on the market. You have the Lynx and the Duquesne. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Sure. Basically, our Duquesne Lynx, again, the inverter system, quiet. I mean, even the compressor is jacketed. It's got a lot of different features. Well equipped for the home, making everything nice and quiet. You know, you want to hear no compressors, noise, or anything like that. Very up to date, 18 SEER, qualifies for different tax incentives, depending on what you match it with. But yes, I mean, this is a great unit for anybody, any time of year.
Fantastic. Well, that's what we need. So if you are watching this, speak with your contractor today and give our friends at Old Ash Air Conditioning and Refrigeration a call.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility of the advertiser.